Okay, obviously I'm joking with this title because I'm a diehard Bulls fan through and through, but guys, I am at a loss here. And I apologize because this video is likely going to turn into a rant. I honestly don't know what the heck is going on with this team. Well, I have some thoughts on what is going on, which I'll get into in a minute, but I can't for the life of me understand how the Bulls are losing to bad teams, night in and night out. You know, initially after the trade and the new guys were brought in, the Bulls struggled and they lost quite a few games, but they were also playing some of the best teams in the league on the road. The players hadn't had a chance to get acclimated to each other, but now you've had a few weeks and they're still losing to teams like the Wolves and then the Magic last night. And not just losing, like the Magic absolutely worked the Bulls over in last night's game, up by more than 20 points at one point in the third quarter. I know the Bulls came back a little there at the end, but they couldn't close. Now the Bulls have lost 4 straight and are now 3-8 since the trade deadline. Seriously, what happens from here? So what's going on, everyone? You're listening to Bulls Central here. I know you're probably not doing well. I myself am not doing the best, but be that as it may, over the past few seasons, and I mean really even including those years when we had Jimmy Butler or even Rose's last year, Bulls fans have been disappointed going into each season with higher expectations than what the Bulls end up performing overall. I know last season I hadn't started this channel, but I was a firm believer that the Bulls would make the playoffs because we had acquired another lottery pick in Coby White, Lauri Markkanen, who had a great sophomore season. I assumed that he was going to get even better. Wendell Carter Jr., who had a promising rookie year despite suffering some injuries. I had high hopes for him in his second season. And then, of course, Lavine, our best player, would be coming in and leading the team to the playoffs. Of course, I should have known that they were being coached by a guy who had no business coaching in this league, and the Bulls faltered and couldn't even make it to the bubble after the season was suspended. And I won't blame it all on Jim Boylen because the players need to be held accountable as well, which that became even more apparent now given the guys have a new coach and are still back to their old habits. But this season rolled around. We got rid of the old front office. We brought in some competent executives, brought in a new coach who I'll admit I wasn't that excited about hiring at the time, but he's better than Jim Boylen. The Bulls got a number 4 pick, which they used to draft a promising player. The Bulls got off to a shaky start this season, but then started playing well despite not really having the best record. The Bulls further struggled leading up to the trade deadline, and then the front office decides to make some big moves at the deadline to upgrade the roster. Everyone is excited that the Bulls are finally going to be competing again, and then this happens. We go 3-8 since the trades were made. Some bad losses, really bad losses, and then even those 3 wins, the Bulls were playing depleted teams, so you can't really get that excited about those wins if you're a Bulls fan, although I'm sure most of us were at that time. So where do we go from here, guys? And I know that was the title of my last video, and I may have to make a separate video on that topic because I know some folks have asked, well, what do the Bulls do now? Because clearly what we have isn't working, even after the trades. And, of course, we don't have our draft pick this year, unless we get lucky with the top 4 protected pick. But for the purposes of this video, I'll try to just focus more on last night's game, since technically this is a post-game video. But I'm not going to put any blame on one particular person or player because everyone on this team needs to be held accountable. And that includes the coaching staff, and probably more so the coaching staff, which I'll get into. Guys aren't playing with heart. They're not playing with energy. They don't look like they want to be there half the time. Guys aren't communicating on the court. They aren't pushing the pace like they used to. They don't hustle on defense, which has always been the case this season. They don't take care of the basketball and make poor decisions on the court. Each and every player has to be held accountable right now because I can't definitively say that some guys are out there giving it their all every game. Maybe with the exception of Daniel Tice, who looks like he actually gives a crap on the court. And yes, I'm including Lavine in that. Lavine also needs to be held accountable as well. I know most of you guys don't like to hear me say that and feel that I'm too critical of Lavine, but he is our best player on the team. This is his team. He is supposed to be the team leader. And I know a lot of you guys were saying last night in the chat, well, he brought us back into this game single-handedly. Well, yes, but the Bulls shouldn't have found themselves in a deep enough hole against a tanking team like the Orlando Magic, whose best player is probably Wendell Carter Jr., a guy who most Bulls fans were criticizing throughout the season. On top of that, Zach, as great as he is, and he did play and played an incredible game last night, did an incredible job bringing the team back after being down 20 to start the fourth quarter, that hero ball mentality or trying to take over to show that he's the man doesn't always work. And let's not forget that when the Bulls did come back into this game, Lavine started taking some bad shots without setting up plays, and then he had that critical turnover where he basically passed the ball to Michael Carter-Williams when the Bulls had cut the lead to 8 and the Magic went down the other end and scored, which was a complete momentum killer, and the Magic never looked back after that. So yes, Zach got us back into this game, and he actually played very well. When you look at his stat line, 30 points, shooting 50%, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal, and 2 blocks, that is an incredible game. But more often than not, I find that when Zach tries to take over and play every man for himself, the Bulls lose because he tries to do too much. And I know some of you will probably say, well, who else is he going to pass to? Everyone else on this team is trash. First of all, they have an all-star in Vucevic, and there are still other talented players on this roster. Trust in your team, play team basketball. That's what wins games. We've seen it this season. When Zach is getting his teammates involved and taking less shots, the Bulls are significantly more successful. You just look at the numbers. And the other thing I don't want to hear is, well, this is what happens when you take Coby White out of the starting lineup. No, Coby is not the answer, okay? There's a reason he was taken out of the starting lineup. I feel some Bulls fans view scoring as the end-all be-all in basketball. They'll cite Coby's scoring numbers before he was taken out of the starting lineup, but have you seen the Bulls' numbers, the team numbers in terms of their plus-minus when Coby is off the court versus when he's on it? And I'm saying that when he was a starter, not most recently. Coby was a liability on defense. He turned the ball over frequently. He was very inefficient in his scoring. And most of all, he was clueless when it came to running an offense as the Bulls' starting point guard. That's why he was taken out of the starting lineup. And the Bulls' recent performance is not because Coby was taken out of the starting lineup. So I don't want to hear any of that nonsense. And I like Coby too. I still think he can be a great player in this league because he's very gifted athletically and has shown flashes of being a great player, especially on offense. But there's a reason he was taken out as a starter, and that's because he wasn't playing good, smart basketball, plain and simple. And no, the Bulls would not be better today if they just brought him back in the starting role. But speaking of lineups, the person who I am holding most accountable for this Bulls' most recent performance, I feel I haven't been hard enough on him recently either, really throughout the season, and that's Billy Donovan. Like I mentioned earlier, I wasn't a big fan of this hiring, but of course, anyone is better than Jim Boylen. And Donovan has actually done some nice things with this roster. I do think guys respect and trust him. He knows the game of basketball well, and at times he has done a good job at motivating the guys. But most recently, when you see guys on the court not hustling, not showing heart, not putting in effort throughout the entire game, that's on coaching. Part of it is on the players. They have to want it, but what is Donovan doing in the locker room to get these guys motivated and pumped for the game? And I still can't understand some of Billy Donovan's rotations. He clearly had no idea what to do last night against the Magic. He played 12 guys last night, and it wasn't like there was any garbage time minutes to bring in more people, since the Bulls actually came back at the end. But Thaddeus Young played 14 minutes last night. I know he kind of struggled to start the game, but he's arguably one of the Bulls' best players. You need to play him more down the stretch. Aminu got 4 minutes, I'm not sure why. Denzel played 11 minutes while Coby played 12. Like I said, I get annoyed with Coby because his decision making on the court has been terrible recently, but how is Denzel getting almost as many minutes as him? That shouldn't happen. I know Garrett Temple is back from injury, but I don't think it was the best idea to take some of Troy Brown's minutes away from him, who has been playing incredibly well recently. He ended up only playing 14 minutes, so Temple could play 10 minutes. Then Markkanen played 17 minutes, and Lauri had 1 rebound last night. Are you kidding me? This guy is a 7-foot basketball player, and he comes away with 1 rebound in 17 minutes of play. Things were just all over the place. How can any group on the court maintain some level of consistency when guys are being funneled in and out of the game? And we've seen this before with Billy Donovan, leaving his starters on the bench in late game situations for too long, mixing lineups with starters and guys off the bench, staying with a given lineup on the court who are struggling and giving up a lead, or putting us into a deeper hole. Just so many questionable decisions in how he's structuring his rotations. And obviously, I'm not a coach, I'm not a GM, so these guys clearly know the game better than I do or I ever will. But clearly things aren't working with what we're trying to do right now, and adjustments have to be made depending on the opponent that we're playing against, and I'm not seeing that from Billy Donovan. I still can't for the life of me understand how Wendell Carter Jr. outworked Vucevic last night. I mean, of course, it was the opposite when Wendell was in a Bulls uniform playing against Vucevic, go figure. And it's not like Vucevic had a bad game last night. He had 29 points and 11 rebounds. He hit 5 threes, but his defense was just terrible against Wendell. I know he's not the best defender, but come on, my guy. You have to at least move a little more quickly on that end of the floor. What's crazy is that the Bulls actually shot the 3-ball well last night, finally. They shot 46%, going 17 for 37, but it doesn't matter if you don't play defense, and it's the single greatest thing the Bulls have to be better at. And I'm sure Arturas is going to focus on that this offseason. Really, he has to, because despite having 2 All-Stars, this team isn't going anywhere if they don't play defense. But until then, is it too much to ask for the Bulls to at least try and hustle on defense? At least try to stay in front of your man. At least try to be better at picking up a switch on a pick and roll. I understand if defense isn't your area of expertise and you do well at other aspects of your game, but at least effort on that end would be appreciated by Bulls fans. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about this game. I honestly don't know where the Bulls go from here, because we don't have our first round pick unless we can get lucky and it falls in the top 4. I think even if the Bulls make the play-in, which is in doubt, they're not going to advance into the playoffs because this team hasn't proven to be successful under any kind of pressure. Anyway, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I post daily Bulls content. I know it's hard to be a Bulls fan right now, but we got to keep our heads up in any way that we can. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.